All right, and welcome back to Mrs. DeVita's art room. This is take 2 of my wave bubble drawing because I had a little blooper in my last one, and unfortunately, my camera and it did not work out. So, round 2. So, we are going to do a wave bubble drawing today. Make sure you have something round to trace around, whether it be a plate, a lid, anything that you have handy. We're going to come to the center. Make sure you have yourself a pencil. And we're going to trace around. And you can start from left, you can start from the right. I do have a couple different ways that you can do this. I have this design right here, which is more of a graphic black and white with a little pop of color. You might prefer no color at all, but let's go ahead and get started. So we have our circle. I recommend keeping outline of that kind of dark so you have that. I want to kind of change up from what I sort of previously had here. So maybe what I'm going to do is just kind of change my waves up just a little bit. Maybe have it a little bit lower. What's moving on me there? And maybe a, kind of like how I had here, I have a smaller one coming in back behind, whereas this one I have a smaller one there. I could have, actually if I wanted to, maybe on this for my third one, it's going to be a little further back, so it's going to look a little bit smaller back here. I am drawing a little bit darker than I would recommend, just because when you start out, if you do have to erase anything, you're going to want to be able to come back in and do that. And if you draw super dark, it does make it a little bit harder to come back in and do what you need to do in terms of taking something out. So what I have here, this is more of, basically a design or a graphic art picture, something a little bit simpler than a realistic drawing. So what you want to think about is, how do I want to come in as waves? I want to kind of follow the pathway of that. And I can come in, kind of follow this around. And it is all up to your personal preference. Yours does not have to look like mine. The nice thing about when you start drawing something like this is sometimes it just happens and then you figure out how you want to do it. And each one kind of tends to look a little different. And you might do something and you might think, I don't really like that, but what if I do this instead? And then you can always come back in and add to it. And that gives it that little bit of a kind of more stylized look. Come back in on this. I could just follow this one right around there. So I kind of like what I have here. I have 3 very different but alike looks. We've got the sun up here and this one, sun maybe on this one, this third one right here. Maybe I will turn this into a nighttime scene. And again, I'm tending to put that sort of towards the middle, but you might want to offset whether it is your sun or your moon or whatever you might have on there. So it's not right smack in the center always. And it just creates, it kind of draws your eye around a little more when you don't have something directly in the center. In terms of the background on this, what I have the sun is I have those rays coming up, but since we don't have that coming from the moon, maybe what we can do is we can come in, maybe have some little stylized stars or something in there. So doing that kind of nighttime scene. I can do, always go around that. A little interest around that. All right, so essentially I have what my main part of my drawing laid down. What you want to think about is how do you want to approach going around it or kind of putting your finishing touches on there. So it just depends on what kind of tools you have handy with you, whether you want to go around it with a Sharpie and have kind of a broad outline, whether you want it just to You can always keep it in pencil if you want to. So that's some people's preference. I have a little bit of a fine point Sharpie here. So what I'm going to do with this particular one is I'm going to go around my main pencil lines and kind of get that kind of worked in. Again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Part of the nice thing about it is art is sometimes full of mistakes, and sometimes those mistakes are what makes things turn out as beautifully as they do. Like if you notice, I had these very sharper, crisper lines before, but as I'm kind of coming along with my pen, what I'm noticing is I kind of like the slightly less stylized and crisp line because it kind of does create that sort of appearance, maybe of a more natural wave. All right, so once I've kind of gone around everything like I want, and I have just done something to that moon there, so you can always come back in, especially if you're using something that is permanent and you don't like something you've done. You can always come in and clean up some of your edges and such like that there. When you get ready to color, you can use pretty much any kind of tools that you want to. You just needed a pencil to kind of start off with in your circular template, but you could come in with color pencils, you could come in with Sharpies, you could come in with Posca pens, any kind of tool that you really prefer. It's really up to your personal preference. Watercolor would be probably really beautiful on this, just depending upon what level of shading and all that you're going for. If you have some pastels or something that you want to use, that is also an option. Pastels would be really nice on this. Again, it's all up to your preference and what you want to do with it. So maybe since I've been using a lot more of the blues and the reds and yellows and the turquoises, maybe in the background of this one, I would like to come in, and I don't really like what I did around those stars, so I think I'm going to come back in. What I found is I really do like these Sharpie paint pens. Ooh, my star. Huh. Trace around these just a little bit. And a nice thing, if you are using Poscas or like a Sharpie paint pen or something, and you do make a mistake, you could, or you get rid of something that you did not intend to, you can always come over what you've done with a lighter color. And we'll talk about that in just a minute. And if you notice, once you got your background colored sometimes, or you've done a whole section of something, it kind of gives your art somewhat of a different appearance. I could come in with my blue, if I wanted to, just somewhat lighter than my See, I just went the wrong way on my line, but it actually turned out kind of good. I kind of like what it did. Change my line weight so it's not all the same. Got a lot more kind of going on in this. Again, like I was saying, the nice thing about the paint pens is that you can go over with other colors. All right, so I'm going to stop right there for today, and I'd love to hear what everybody does with their drawings. Got a little bit of blending coming in on there. And again, you can add, subtract, do whatever you want with it. I got a little bit of red on the moon. Huh. All right, happy drawing. Thanks for joining us.